Hello everybody, welcome to the first episode of Graduology and my living room, because I've just moved all my stuff back from uni and frankly my room is in a state that is too embarrassing for YouTube. I am really excited for this first episode, and our first interviewee is Kate Mason. She is a psychology and education graduate from the University of York and she currently works for Willis Towers Watson. Kate was so lovely to interview and I really hope you enjoy the video. Please give the video a thumbs up if you like it, and also please subscribe to see future interviews. I hope you enjoy the video and I'll see you soon. Bye.
Okay, so thank you again. Thank you so much for doing this. So, thought we'd start with, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself, which uni you went to, what your course title was, and when you graduated?
Yeah, of course. So I went to the University of York.
Mm-hmm.
I did psychology and education, which was the first year that course ran. So I actually got in to do psychology and switched in my first term. So happy to talk about that later. But so I did psychology and education, I'd say with a minor in musical theatre, to be honest, because I did so much CHMS,
Same.
musical theatre and drama soc. But and I graduated in 2016, so 4 years ago now.
Lovely. So what made you switch from psychology to psychology and education?
So it was a bit of a weird one, actually, because I was very happy on the psychology course. It wasn't anything, I was really enjoying it. It was potentially a little bit more sciencey than I was expecting. So I was always interested in the educational psychology, forensics and sort of developmental psychology, but liked the other stuff too. But I was late for a lecture and ended up sitting without my friends from my flat, and there was a girl behind me talking about this new course and that she was just switching, and I completely eavesdropped her conversation and then turned around and said, "Hey, so that sounds really cool, like, can you tell me more?" And I think I switched something like 2 days before the cut-off deadline for switching courses. Otherwise you have to repeat the year. And it was one of those leaps of, it was a brand new course. I hadn't even been running a term. I knew that it was BPS accredited, which was really important to me. But it was different departments, so it was within the education department. And I just took the leap, and actually I'm really glad I did because it was much more me. All the modules were more tailored around sort of the psychology of learning. And at the time, I was really interested in teaching. So I thought that would be a good decision as well. It was also a much smaller course, which suited me. So there were 20 of us, I think, in that first intake. So we got so much one-on-one support, and they really could tailor the modules around what they knew we were interested in because there were so few of us.
Yeah. So the next question was, what made you choose that specific degree? But I think we've kind of gone into that, the fact that you thought you wanted to be a teacher.
Originally interested in psychology, I think similar to you, just really interested in people. I'd done, I guess, like you as well, because you did loads of drama stuff at uni.
Yes.
Interested in people and stories, and sort of how people think and how people behave. So that was always my interest. So that's why psychology. And then I made that switch because I was interested in teaching. And I'd done a lot of drama teaching as well with 2 boys who had autism. So there were just loads of connections that course was more relevant to me,
that makes sense. Cool. So can you talk me through your career path so far? I actually have it written down. I stalked your LinkedIn profile and made some notes.
Amazing. I love that.
You've got a massive armory of experience, which is, honestly, you have the LinkedIn profile that I aspire to. So,
oh my God.
Could you talk us through your sort of career path from starting from university?
Sure. And thank you so much for saying that. Honestly, if I could have heard that conversation when I was in your shoes right now, I'd have died. I'd have been like that. That's amazing. So I'll be totally honest. I ignored all the career stuff when I was at uni, which meant that when I graduated, I was like, I kind of just had this idea that I'd sort of, went to a Russell group, got a first, I'll just send out some applications and why wouldn't they want me? And then you get that harsh reality where, everyone else did an internship in second year. Everyone else actually knows what they want to do.
Yes.
But I don't regret all the drama I did because it makes me interesting now, like a few years on. When people sort of talk about their university days, and I said, I did, I produced this show and, I played this part and all sort of creative. I was doing a mixture of sort of teaching placements, drama. I mean, honestly, I went to uni for the course, but also to do everything else as well.
Yes.
But I guess my career path kind of started by accident in second year. So I got involved with a psychology volunteering organisation called SLV Global. So I went out to Sri Lanka for 5 weeks, and it was a mixture of teaching, working in special needs care homes and psychiatric sort of hospitals as well. So I did that for a summer, and that was massively jumping out of the comfort zone. Like, I'd never really traveled before, and I'd never really done like hands-on work experience like that. Like, I'd done teaching, but mainly sort of small children, so I hadn't done any adult teaching. But I sort of did that and then came back to uni, kind of forgot about it a bit. But then when I graduated, they were looking for just a part-time person in the office just to do phone interviews.
Okay.
And I was sort of interested in HR and sort of recruitment. So I thought, oh, phone interviews, that's a really good experience. So I did that. I also did children's theatre at the same time. So it was theatre and education, going around to schools, devising a show, writing it, marketing it, and then doing workshops with the children. So, I mean, I was doing so many things, but also kind of working out what I wanted to do more sort of long term. And I was so stressed at the time about finding like the career path. I was so thinking about, where do I want to be in 5-10 years time? Like, what career do I want to have? What kind of life do I want? What, do I want to be more corporate? Do I want to work with children? Like, all of this stuff. But actually, the stuff that people find really interesting now was all the random things I did, like working for a volunteering organisation, doing children's theatre. They're the things that actually make you interesting.
Yeah.
That gig turned into a full-time job. So I was in the university team. So I went around all the universities, talked to students about my volunteering experience. So I came back to York. That was fun.
Yeah. Was your placement after university or in a summer?
No, so I did my placement in between second year and third year, just for 5 weeks. And then the next year started working part-time and just doing phone interviews with other volunteers. Then that turned full-time, and I looked after all the university relationships. So talking to psychology departments all over the country. I think there were about 150.
And that was when you were sort of travelling up and down doing careers fairs and things like that, was that? Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, my job was sort of at least once a week being at a careers fair or a psychology careers fair, talking about volunteering, getting people to sign up, doing presentations, that sort of thing. It was such a good experience, just getting up in front of 200, 300 psychology students and just chatting to them for a bit. And I love the careers fairs because I love talking to people one-on-one and sort of tailoring the pitch slightly to be around what they were interested in. So if they were really interested in working with children, sort of focusing on that. If they wanted to work in clinical psychology, sort of talking more about the hospitals and stuff like that. And I then at some point when I was sort of part-time everywhere, did a week's work experience in the HR department at a law firm. And one of the teams I spent a lot of time with was graduate recruitment. So that kind of, I liked that because I was already doing it, but for psychology.
Yeah.
And I loved that experience. And then a few months later, sort of thinking, what's next? Like, I'd sort of got the most out of that role I'd done a couple of cycles of visiting universities and talking to the psychology department. So I was looking for graduate recruitment jobs in law and ended up sort of falling into learning and development, which was perfect for my degree, which was psychology and education.
Was this was that Cooley LLP?
Yes, it was. That was Cooley. So that's a US law firm, but they had a office in London. So I was there for 18 months, and I got to do a bit of graduate recruitment as well. So I did the assessment days. I went to a few universities and did the careers fairs, which was really interesting because I'd done it for sort of volunteering fairs and psychology, and then sort of I was at the same unis but this time in the law department. So that was cool. That's
really interesting because you don't have a law background.
No, not at all.
So I'm assuming just to work in law recruitment you don't need a law background, you just need to be good at recruitment.
No, not at all. Yeah, it's a very niche type of recruitment, I think. Legal recruitment, particularly graduate recruitment, because they've got their own there's all sorts of hoops they have to jump through before they can just start. They have to do sort of training courses, and you recruit them sort of 2 years in advance. And but I found it really interesting. I thought it was cool. And then I did my CIPD qualification, which is the sort of professional qualification for HR and learning and development. So if you're interested at all in HR or learning and development or anything people focused, I'd have a look at potentially one day doing a CIPD.
Yes, I looked it up because I didn't know what it was. But yeah, was that online? An online
so
course?
it was. I did a sort of fundamentals HR course through Future Learn, which was free, and I did that online. And that was, so I'd done some work experience in law. I was applying for law firms for sort of learning and development and graduate recruitment. So I did the course just to sort of say, I really am interested, because a lot of HR and learning and development roles will ask for CIPD or an interest in CIPD. It's like quite a big thing now. It's sort of like,
right.
I mean, it's obviously not the same as the accountancy exams, but I think it's going to get there in terms of being credible.
Right.
So I did... Yeah, so it was a free online course initially, just like 2 hours a week or something. Then it was face-to-face. I mean, now it's online because we're in lockdown, but it was, I'd spend a weekend going for each module, so Saturday and Sunday, and then you have 3 weeks to write an essay. So it was very intense doing it alongside a full-time job. If you have downtime and you're keen, maybe do it before you start working. Like,
how long did the qualification take then?
So you need to do a certain number of modules, and for me it was about a month per module, and I did 3 core modules and 2 optional. There's 3 levels. There's level 3, level 5, level 7. Level 7 is basically a master's. Level 5 is like, yep, you're good, and level 3 is kind of introductory. I did level 5, so
level 5,
I didn't do which I think is the sort of tick box good, you know, you've got CIPD. Very much the sort of standard. And then I did the certificate, which was 5 modules, but the diploma is 7. So some people did 7 modules, but I did 5.
Okay.
And now I'm a member of CIPD for life,
nice.
I think. So that's cool.
Yeah, I see.
So yeah, and now, in a roundabout way, so now I am working at a company called Willis Towers Watson, and they are a sort of global consulting company. So they work across corporate risk, insurance, but I'm in the human capital sort of side of the business. So specifically when you break that down, I'm in the talent and reward team, and within that I'm in talent. So I work in the change management and communications practice. So I help organizations with all the change management they have to make their sort of employees happier, more productive, and help them with their comms as well. So communications around their benefits, around retirement plans or financial well-being, lots of well-being, particularly at the moment because of lockdown, which ties in with my experience of working for a mental health organisation. So
amazing. Was it easy enough to sort of settle in remotely? Because that's what's been worrying me. Like, what if I get a job like that, but then I have to start remotely? It just, I don't know, might feel a bit strange.
No, I totally get it. I'm really lucky that I did get that one day just to meet my manager, because it makes such a difference in that first little while. But I think, I probably started working remotely like as early as it could possibly have been. I think now, I have friends who've started new jobs remotely, and they get their laptop delivered and off they go. But it's becoming more common. So I wouldn't worry. You're doing a virtual internship, aren't you?
I'm doing the Bright Network one. Yeah, it's 3 days next month. Yeah.
So that experience will help you so much when you start, because you'll just kind of know. I would say turn your camera on as much as you can so people can see you, and just be the most proactive person. It feels awkward at times, but anytime I got an email from someone in my team, like a team email, just saying, "Oh, does anyone have any information on whatever?" I'd always just reply and be like, "Hey, I don't think we've met. Like, can I put in some time to say hi?" And everyone's obviously like, "Yeah, of course." This is so new for everyone, and I think I started on the grad scheme. And usually grad schemes start September. So I actually applied for the grad scheme. So I was a bit nervous about that anyway, because I have been out of uni for a few years, but it's been absolutely fine. And that's actually a piece of advice I have, that if you ever want to change track and kind of start something new, like, don't be afraid of doing a graduate development program, because they're amazing. It's absolutely fine. You've just got to be really proactive and just make people sort of, "Hi, I'm here. Hi, let's chat."
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good advice. Cool. Amazing. So, next question is, what skills have you learned within your degree that you think have helped you in your career?
Yeah, good question. I'd say the biggest thing is this. I mean, I'm really lucky that I've never had to do SPSS and I've never had to do actual stats in my career. And I think my favorite thing has been, so when you're looking at numbers and data as a psychology student, you have to understand SPSS and statistics. In the real world, you absolutely don't if you're working in HR, if you're working in learning and development. But there is a huge trend in those kind of fields for using data, but you don't have to be able to analyze it statistically. So I'd say one of the biggest things I got from doing psychology is the ability to take data and do what other people think is really interesting, but for us it's like the mean and like, you know, averages and things like that, but taking data and being able to make a story with it. So for some of the academies that I worked on when I was working in professional development, we get just tons of qualitative feedback and quantitative feedback, and just being able to sort of take it, pick out the bits that are relevant and put it into, you know, a one-page report, things like that. And people who didn't do science at uni think it is so impressive when we can do that, but for us it's like the easy bits of stats. So, and yeah, I think when you're working in more people-focused careers, so I guess management consulting, which is what I'm doing, is, I mean, if you can use data and you're working with people, those two don't often go together. Either it's sort of, you know, people working in very analytical roles, very like mathsy roles. But if you're talking about sort of people and how people feel and sort of ideas for making people happy, and you can use data, it's really impressive, and people don't expect it. So when you can suddenly sort of give a bit of an overview of sort of what the numbers mean and tell the story with the numbers and sort of tell people what the numbers show, it's very interesting.
It's so important as well, because I mean our entire world is basically built on data at the moment. So being able to do that, I think, is just such an important skill. Yeah,
and there's such a trend in any business to be able to show your return on investment. So if you can say, you know, if you can quantify anything, so, you know, you gave us this money and this is what we have shown you that we have made people more productive by 10%. And if you can show that to them, you're sort of speaking their language, which they like. So you're then more credible. Exactly. Numbers. Like,
everyone needs
you're sort of fooling them in like, we care about the people, but you care about the numbers. So if I can talk about the people using the numbers that you understand, then you'll think we're more credible in our team. So that's a big trend. Other things, so I'd say just going to university in general, you just learn how to have an opinion on stuff. So I think before I went to university, people would sort of be talking about issues or whatever, and I just wouldn't know how to sort of just have an opinion. Like, that sounds bad, but I'd sort of would just you learn to be really critical of stuff, and you learn to sort of not just take the first opinion that comes your way and sort of latch to it. You can kind of take a step back and say, okay, I hear what you're saying, but, and then all that critical thinking that they talk to us about so much at uni. What else? I guess for me personally, doing volunteering at uni helped me get my first grad job. So that's always helpful.
Was that mainly SLV, or did you do other things as well?
Yeah, I did I can't remember what they're called now, but the teaching placements. So that was helpful. I think it doesn't really matter what you do as long as you can apply it to the job you're applying for. So I went through a phase before I went to Cooley and before I started working full-time at SLV where I was applying for HR grad schemes. And it really doesn't matter that you don't have sort of specific experience if you can just talk about. I think at first I was sort of shying away from all the stuff I'd done. So I was like, oh, they don't want to hear about theatre. Like, they just, oh, okay, I'll talk about that recruitment experience I did because that's relevant for HR. But actually, anything you've done, like, just find the bit that's relevant for wherever you're applying, and you're way more interesting than like someone who's literally just done the same thing all the way through, and all the same kind of work experience.
I mean, it shows that you're just a well-rounded person in general, doesn't it?
I think people would prefer to hire. Actually, I would say the example from Cooley, I had a conversation with my manager sort of after I'd been hired. I was the only CV that got to her who wasn't already working in learning and development in law. And I just kind of came in and I talked about psychology, and I talked about drama and how drama improves confidence, and lawyers need to be confident and we can teach them through drama. Talked about, I mean, all sorts. I did have that work experience, which was useful. So I had done a week's work experience in HR, but I was hired because of all the random stuff I'd done. And certainly now where I am, people are so much more interested in hearing about, oh, okay, so, you know, you did communications for a charity at university fairs. That's really cool, rather than, you know, I did a degree in communication or a master's in communications, you know.
Yeah.
I think as well, being concise. So when I was writing essays, I am the absolute queen of writing 2 times as much and saying half of what I need to. So having word counts, I mean, you do have word counts in real life, but not to the same extent that, you know, you can't submit it if it's 1 word over or whatever. I think learning how to take that much, because no one wants, like, you know, your director doesn't want to read that, they want that.
No.
So I think being able to like take essays and like make them in the word count is helpful when you're sending an email. And sometimes I'll catch myself, I'll be like, this email is so long that, like, as much as we think they, you know, all directors like read every word you say, like they're so busy. Oh, and actually this is like a tiny tip, but I found this helped me. On your CV, just make bold the words you actually want them to read. So I started doing this. Yeah. Oh, this is the other thing. Everyone's like, oh, no more than 2 pages, and, you know, it has to fit on like one side, and you don't go into detail. Literally do whatever you want on your CV, but like if you've got stuff to say it. But I find it really helpful to just highlight what I want them to see for that job. So when I was applying for HR, anything HR related, I just highlighted keywords. With consulting, you know, I sort of knew the buzzwords. I could try and work out the buzzwords they're looking for, and then I just highlight. So in each sentence there'd be like 1 word that was highlighted, so they could see at a glance, like, oh yeah, got that, tick 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 tick. So just a tip.
That's really good. That's really good. Thank you.
It's so funny talking to you now, because I did exactly what you're doing. I reached out to people sort of just a few years on in sort of industries that I was interested in, and they were like, yeah, it's great, like it all comes together and there's this light bulb moment, and you're like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and all the other things, all that. And I was like, okay, fine, but like that doesn't help me right now.
No.
So I feel kind of funny giving you that advice, but like honestly, I would say, I think the last question you had was advice, and a big piece of advice I have is try not to think about what you want to do in 10 years time and work back. Try, like I was sitting there going, okay, so cool, I'll be an HR director, and okay, so I need to do this, and and then in 2 years time I'll do that, and I was sort of thinking like that. Try and think about what you want to do for the next 6 months, because you can try so many different things, and I think people feel so panicky, like getting on a career ladder and like picking one thing and sticking with it. But honestly, you're so much more interesting and employable if you've tried things. Because I think some people get to the end of a grad scheme and go, oh my God, this is so not what I want to do. And then they've invested 2 years of attention and money in you, and just because you only stuck to one thing. Whereas I feel like when I was applying, I said, I've tried loads of stuff and everything has kind of pointed me in this direction, and I've had this light bulb moment, and this brings together everything I wanted to do. And they were like, okay, we believe you, because you've sort of tried lots. I'm sure it hasn't changed from when I was job hunting after uni, but you will get so many people who just don't reply at all. And it's so it's so tough, because it's nothing, it says nothing about you at all. It's just people are busy, and it's not, I'm sure that particular manager you emailed would love to, reply to you and give you advice and stuff, but they are being pressured to finish that project by their manager, and it just, so therefore they just, but what other advice do I have? Oh yes, I would look into like free online introduction courses and stuff you're interested in, because I think anyone can go into an interview and say, yeah, I'm so interested in HR, or I'm so interested in recruitment, or like anything. If you've done, it doesn't have to be an expensive course, it can literally be free, but if you can say, yeah, I was really interested, so I found this course and this is what I learned, and it's like a tangible interest. So for me, it was doing a free fundamentals in HR course, it's like my biggest piece of advice. Just do something that shows that you're keen enough, because it's quite a big risk for an employer to take a risk on like a grad who doesn't have any experience actually doing the job, because like you could do the job and realize it's not for you. But if you've done a course in it and still love it and sort of, you know, can talk the talk as well, you kind of get around the fact that you might not have done an internship in marketing or whatever it is, if you've done a course and you can talk about it and you still love it and it's not.
It also shows that you're keen, and that if they hire you, you know, you'll enjoy it and you're keen to learn things.
Yeah, I think as well, a question that you'll probably get asked is, well, how did you spend your lockdown? I have also been stalking you on LinkedIn, and I think you're doing all the right stuff, like doing virtual internships, posting, and just being proactive and being like, hello world, like I'm here. Yeah, just share stuff you find interesting. And I had so many rejections in my first year, and it shakes you a bit, because you're like, wait, what? Because you did well at school, you got into uni, you went to a good Russell Group university, presumably you got like a 2-1, or did you get a 2-1?
I got a 2-1, yeah.
Perfect. So you got your 2-1, like, and you're like, cool, awesome, Russell Group degree in the bag, like here we go. And then it's like, oh my god, it's so much harder than I thought it was going to be, but it will happen. I mean, yeah, I'd just be able to answer that question, what did you do during lockdown? And I think if you could say researching, virtual internships, talking to people, creating resources for other grads in my situation, it just all sounds amazing.
I mean, it also gets you into a sort of habit of just doing things. Like I've always been the kind of person who likes doing things. I could never lie in on a Saturday morning, because I like to get up and do stuff, and people would look at me like, oh my god, you're so weird, why can't you sleep until 12? It's like, I like to get up and do cool things.
No, it's good, it's really good. Other advice I have, so yeah, we've talked about don't look 10 years down the line. I'm so bad at that. Like my family have to like call me out on this all the time. I'm so bad at sort of, okay, but you know, what if in 2 years time I'm not doing this and this and this, and they're like, yeah, but what do you want to do in 6 months? Like, it's fine. Like, if I did so many different things in sort of the years after I graduated, and it all fits together somehow, because you'll make it fit together. You'll like take the interesting bits.
I mean, I've been asked that in an interview, what's your 10-year plan? And I thought, well, do you really want to know that far ahead?
I mean, it's good to have that answer. I also got asked that in my Cooley interview, actually. They were like, what's your 10-year plan? And I sort of said this plan. They were like, that's like a 3-year plan. Like, you could do all that in 3 years. I was like, oh, okay. Like, so it's good to have a plan, because it shows that you're driven. But I think it's also okay to say, I always fall back on qualifications for that one, actually. I'm always like, you know, I'm really keen to do the CIPD qualification to learn more about sort of people and organisations and helping people be the best they can be. So I'd hope to have that qualification by that or whatever, because it shows that you're committed to, if it's HR and learning and development or whatever. What other things? So courses. I'd say look beyond the modules you studied as well. Just because my course didn't have anything to do with organizational psychology at all. Like, I'd heard of it, but it was all focused on sort of teaching and educational psychology. And I'd say about half my course went on to do teaching. So it was brilliant for those people, but I didn't make the connection with psychology in business and in industry, and how psychology could help me in a more corporate environment for like ages after, because I was like, oh no, but I just did educational psychology. So I'd think about all the areas of psychology, where all the areas that they could possibly reach, and just explore things that you might not have actually had the chance to study, because actually nobody cares that you did a module in, like, I don't know, forensic psychology. Like, it's far more, if you want to be a forensic psychologist, so my friend's doing that at the moment, they don't care that you did a module in 3rd year on forensics as your optional. They care more that you worked with vulnerable people and have read up around the subject on your own. So I think if someone had told me that, I sort of wrote it off initially, because I thought I was really unqualified for it, because I hadn't done it as an optional module because it wasn't offered. But yeah, it's okay. Don't be too stuck in, I mean, I ended up working in learning and development, which is adult education in a corporate environment, that kind of came from basically learning about how children learn. So it's there somewhere, even if it's not sort of directly relevant.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, do you have any tips for interviews?
I'd say don't shy away from things that you've done. So this applies for us theatre people. Don't shy away from it. I think own every experience you've had. So if you produced a play, or you balanced doing a huge show like a CHMS sort of Central Hall show alongside a degree and got a first in that module or whatever. Like, own it. Like, it's really cool. So I did quite a lot of producing, and I just sort of thought, okay, they're obviously not looking for a theatre producer. They're looking for a learning and development person in a law firm. But within producing, I did budgeting, I did scheduling, which is huge when you're sort of, all the grad jobs, you have to schedule diary invites. People are saying, what kind of things did you do at uni? I was like, yeah, well, we wanted to do an all-inclusive showcase because we wanted people to be able to enjoy it and sort of have fun. Just like all the stuff, it just makes you look like a good person, basically.
That's
like,
amazing.
So directing 70 people so that they could all do what they love and sort of do their passions. It's just, if you're passionate about it, your passion will come across the interviewer. So I'd say that's a tip. I'd say having like really tangible examples. So it's all very well saying, yeah, no, I'm really good at like whatever. But before an interview, I'd get like a piece of paper and I'd write down everything that I would like to mention at some point that I think makes me sound impressive, is impressive, is just a quirky thing that I'd like to mention. And then I sort of write down like example interview questions, like competency based stuff, because they're all the same. It's like, tell me about a time you worked in a team, and they can throw you, even though like if you were writing it wouldn't throw you, but somehow those competency questions really throw you in the moment. They're like, tell me about when you led a team, or like, tell me about your biggest failure. So I just rehearse the hell out of them. Like,
yes.
And also so I'd get like a big piece of paper and I'd write down all the things, and then I'd literally just link them all together, and then I knew that I had 2 examples for like anything they could throw at me, and I could reuse examples for different things, but just be like on automatic with the competency based questions, because every interview you ever do will have them.
And there were so many that can catch you out.
Yeah, I think also if a question does catch you out, because I've had this a couple of times. Actually, so in my interview for Willis Towers Watson, they asked me what my biggest regret was. Like what my biggest failure or something like that, and it did throw me, and it's absolutely fine. I guess I try and make interviews really conversational, so rather than just sort of sitting there and waiting and then coming back up, I was like, that's such a good question, like let me just think about that, because I want to give you a good answer, and it becomes a conversation. I always go, you've probably heard this a million times, but I think quite carefully about the questions I want to ask. So whether that's, I'm really interested in sort of professional development, like would there be an opportunity for me to do this kind of course, or I ask about like volunteering days. I basically say, this is really important to me, like what opportunities are there, and just make it really sort of conversational, because if they feel like they've had a conversation with, and I've been on the other side now where I've sort of interviewed and done graduate recruitment and stuff, if I feel like I've had a conversation with someone, rather than, because it can be quite awkward to ask questions, get an answer, and just not have that kind of rapport. It can feel quite awkward, so then you sort of feel a bit awkward about that candidate. But if you have a conversation with them, and it's kind of 2 ways, and you're asking them questions and you're really interested, I always ask them about what their sort of highlight is from the company, like their absolute favorite project that they've worked on, because people love talking about themselves. And even if they're like a senior director, I'm like, I know you've been here like 20 years, but I'm just so interested to know like what is, if you had to pick one project that you've worked on, like what would it be? And then they can talk, you can kind of talk a bit that kind of thing, and just make it as conversational as possible. And also, again, like, don't be afraid to reach out to people. If you've got an interview and you have found someone on LinkedIn who works in a similar field, just reach out and ask for like pre-interview chat, and just see if they have any like industry knowledge, maybe. So like if like particularly now with COVID, like say you're applying for some kind of recruitment consultant role or something like that, reach out to a recruitment consultant and say, like, can you tell me about like challenges in the industry? I think at the moment, like knowing what the effect COVID will have on stuff is pretty key. And if you can have some idea, then that's good.
Yeah. So
I can't tell you how, like the job I have now, where sort of everything's come together and I'm so happy. I just, now is the time that I look back and I'm like, thank God I didn't get that HR grad scheme. Thank God I didn't end up doing that random marketing thing that I didn't really want to do anyway, but I was just so desperate for a job. Like it's really satisfying when you look back, but also it's really brave. And like talk about that. I think as well, people, if you can own your failures, they're not failures, but if you can own your like stuff, I think it just says loads. Like I think it'd be super cool if someone came in and sort of said what they'd learned from I mean, what you've learned from the rejection is that, you need to learn more and talk to more people. And so you did this video. Like, I think it's great. Like, you definitely have a story, which is good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Just try things. It's okay to try something and not like it and start again. Like, I know so many people that did something for a couple of years after graduating and completely restarted in a different industry. And just try not to panic. Don't think too far ahead. Like, what do I want to do in 5 years? Like, who do I want to be when I'm 30? Like, just think about what do I want to learn about and experience in the next 6 months and go from there, I would say. Also, like the competency interviews, I'd say that's for interviews specifically, nail the competency questions. Like, practice them in the shower, in your head, like, just so that be able to, like, you see the question and you see the, like, teamwork, leadership, whatever, and you immediately have your go-to responses and your go-to examples. It just reassures you. You feel like nothing can throw you. And when you do get a curveball question, you're just better at thinking on your feet if you just have such solid examples. And actually, to be honest, a lot of the time I had about 5 things, because they're never going to ask you every question on the list. They'll ask you 2 or 3 of them. So they don't know that if they'd asked you about teamwork that you would have used the same like example. They don't know that. So I had like 5 really, really solid examples. I kind of used in every interview, kind of tailored it around whatever question they asked. I mean, obviously not the same answer to the same person, but like, you could use it as leadership or teamwork or thinking outside the box, that kind of thing. And problem solving and all the lovely things.
We've gone on for a really long time, but
I've enjoyed it. Yeah.
Brilliant. So have I. Thank you so much for doing this. I really, really appreciate it.